Good afternoon to everybody here. My name is Tim O'Brien. I'm the CEO of Metasphere Limited. Metasphere is a company that operates directly with water, wastewater, environment and gas utility sectors. I'd just like to ask, because I much prefer an interactive approach, how many people here actually work in the utility? Great. And how many are from my competitors or our competitors operating the same field as Metasphere? I love it. I unashamedly have not actually put too much about Metasphere in here. And I'm here to talk about innovative technologies to help prevent wastewater spills. That's actually interesting because I don't actually agree with the title. It's not the innovative technology that will solve the problem, it's actually innovative solutions. And that is much more than the technology itself. It's actually what you take to the market that makes the difference. We're all familiar with the wastewater issues, and we've got up here CSOs going to both the sea and to the rivers. And for the last 15 years, a lot of effort has been put into CSO monitoring, but that's at the output. That's the last thing in the line. And in the recent past, of course, you started to hear numbers. And the first speaker very kindly identified the number of spills that happened in England and Wales last year. It was just short of 400,000 in 2021. And when you've got 400,000 spills, and that's England and Wales, not Northern Ireland or Scotland, and then start multiplying that up across the world. There's a hell of a lot of spills. There's a target, nobody's talking about it, but by 2025, that has to reduce by 100,000 spills. And certain companies are taking action to do that. Some are rushing and just wanting to get units installed. That's great, but it's not just the installation of the unit that makes a difference. It's about the actual total activity you've got around it to make it happen. And by 2040, it's saying it's down to 0 spills. I don't necessarily think it means 0 spills, but it's about how you contain that element in itself. And you know, when you start thinking about that, and then start looking at what the costs are, I don't know if anybody here is prepared to offer a price that they think of just clear up of a spill cost, an average clear up cost. Nobody's going to volunteer. Well, if I was in Australia, and we run a business in Australia, it's about $12,000 to $15,000. So call it 10 to 12, £10,000. That's just sending a truck out to clear up, pick the drain manhole up, clean it up, send it out. 400,000 times 10,000, 4 to the 10 to the 9. Just gives you a value of what we're talking about. And if you want to focus, it's about how you solve that particular problem here. In terms of the reputation damage, it is huge. That's the biggest fear factor that the utilities in the UK and Australia have at the moment. And it is a driving factor. It's certainly driving Southern Water. And it's driving, at the other end of the scale, Severn Trent as well, in terms of trying to move themselves further forward. In this approach. Whilst you've got that happening and you've got the direct costs, you've then got other things that come in here. You talked about outcome deliverables on that particular aspect. And the fines, they've just moved from 250,000 to potentially 250 million. The fines are astronomical. And if you start layering this, what is also going to drop out, because you can't focus on every one of these aspects. So if you take ESG, this is not a buzzword, it is certainly coming onto the agenda of many of the utilities for the next 10 years. I can see that, you know, given the fines and given the clear-up costs, that something's got to give. And you've got to look at the value. The ODIs, the pain gains, I don't know what it is in your respective utilities, but I can see sometimes minus 15 million, you know, in terms of pain, plus 6 to 7 million gain. So 21, 22 million delta. That pales into insignificance if you've got a 250 million fine coming down, or a 100 million fine, or a 50 million fine. And last year, I think there were 60 serious incidents where they obviously going to attract some serious fines to go with it. You know, that was up from 40 the year before. So this is a growing problem, and it will get worse as the infrastructure, you know, as you go over time, because the infrastructure is aging even more. Now, I would argue, as an engineer, I did train as an engineer a few years ago, that technology and engineering is not the issue. One can always find a solution. It's whether you can do it for the right parameters and the right cost to go with this. This is just some examples of the various solutions that are out there at the moment. If you look at AMP6, AMP7, it was very much around CSO monitoring, combined solar overflow monitoring. There are 15,000 CSOs in England and Wales, and if they're spilling 400,000 times, or leading into that, you've got a hell of a spillage rate. And it is, very much. We were looking to put two box solutions, some form of level sensor, some form of telemetry unit. But it was very much to monitor to alarm. It was reactive. That's what was happening. But you look at, and if you understand your customer, and our biggest issue is actually understanding what is noise within a customer and what is really driving the behaviours to make a change in the organisation. We're all familiar with drone footage of CSOs spilling into seas and into rivers, but it's the one on the right, the bottom right, that is the worst one, because this is when sewage gets packed up into your home through a sewage blockage and so on. And that is what some of the utilities are now trying to prevent from happening. The challenge, and there is some big challenges here. Actually, my biggest challenge is, what is the business case? Because you ask that of several people within an utility organisation, and you cannot find what the real business case is. You can't even establish the number of spills that they've had to deal with last year, or the cost of clearing up those spills. And I'm not blaming the people I'm interacting with, because the knowledge is not necessarily to their hand. But it is, if we had that, then you've got a clarity around that particular side. It would also help to understand what the value proposition is. Because, sorry guys, it's economics at the end of the day. You can have any solution, but you don't necessarily have infinite resource or money to go and put that solution to play. You need to understand the value proposition in this particular case. And finally, of course, actually, you need to measure the success. And again, do I ever see a business case? In the last 15 years, this is what our business case was to install. Do I ever see the report on whether that was successful with inside a utility? And again, shared with suppliers. Because if you did, you could get more focus about where you should put your efforts in the first place. And in terms of one thing, I mean, I heard only last week, well, we're into 5 years, it's going to cost us £10 million to replace that estate. Estate of what? It doesn't matter. But they don't know whether they've had £10 million worth of benefits over the last 5 years. In terms of spillages, you can find that out if you know what the business case is in the first place. So, I mean, just to talk about this, I mean, we talk about innovative technologies, but actually I would talk more about intuitive innovation. It's about making it right for the solution that you're trying to put through at the moment. In the last 4 years, IoT is the buzzword in terms of technology. And as a supplier and an operator in this particular field, I felt, oh my goodness me, there's going to be lots of other companies coming into the state. Were we worried about it? No, we welcomed it, because they get some different ideas. The difficulty is they don't necessarily understand the water industry and the complexity of the water industry or the wastewater industry, and you need both sets of knowledge to be able to move it. It has certainly helped us lower our costs of our sensing equipment and telemetry equipment. Make no bones about it, and it's going to be used for the utility, and that is the case. In terms of cloud processing, AI and machine learning, well, take cloud processing first. Everybody's talking about going to the cloud. We've done it. It is obviously in place to have it. I still have arguments in Australia. Well, it's not on-prem, it's security, it's not in the cloud in Australia. Okay, I can't, I give up the hope to argue against that one in Australia. But that's the sort of thing that one's faced with. But it does make life easier, and it's about the number of data points, because the scalability is absolutely a must here. AI and machine learning, everybody says, oh, that's the next thing to go for. Yes, it has lots of stuff, but you were saying, how do you actually utilize that information to make it really, well, utilize that data to make the information come to play. And okay, I mean, the first speaker, Bernard, talked about what happens in the wastewater thing. We're moving to predictive event. We've moved, make no bones about it. We're trying to give utilities time to act, time to get there before the spillage actually occurs. And this is just a very simple indicator of what actually happens in that network. We can machine learn within 1 to 2 weeks what's actually happening in that network around that manhole. And this is what comes out on it. So the blue lines are the rainfall, the brown line, amber line is actually, it should drop back after the rainfall's gone through. It should drop back to the level, but you can see this one climbing. And this is running over several days, and it means that you can, at the appropriate time, send people out to go and react on this. So, for us, innovative solutions is very much about end-to-end solutions. i.e., you're trying to limit the number of points of failure from delivering that particular solution. And whilst we may not deliver the whole of it, we can, but we may not. Others have other parties. You've got to have a totally scalable and with connectivity, because people forget we're operating in battery environment, we're operating below manholes in a pretty aggressive atmospheres, and it's pretty hard to get the data out of them. And to do it in a latex environment, more often than not, intrinsically safe for others, you have to be able to have low-powered units that not only drive the sensor, but also drive the communications and the comms. And it's great to have a unit up here working, but when it's down there, if it's not connected in large volume, then we've got a problem on our hands. And it's dependable and reliable data. The last thing the Telford wants, utility manager, is false positives, because that does not help the situation at all in the marketplace. And I can see if you don't trust the data, don't believe in it, then you've got a problem in itself. So, in terms of scalability, manufacture, you've got to be able to do stem cell manufacture. You've got to do it in such a way that when it comes to installing, you're installing in less than 5 minutes. And if you're not installing in 5 minutes, and most companies are at 25, 30 minutes, plus to 45, you're just blowing away the money that you're saving on the IoT devices in contractor fees to go and do the installation work. We are installing close on or really not, but the companies we're working with are close on 2,000 units a week are being installed right now. Okay? Greater than 20,000 will be installed by November. And that's been done in double quick time. In terms of software, configurable, scalable, but it's also, when you come to AI and machine learning, a super fast calculation engine. We're ingesting data every 5 minutes for actual plus 30 hours ahead. And by taking that 30 hours ahead, we are, within that 5 minutes, able to recalculate and reforecast what's actually going to happen in that area. And we're operating at greater than 1 billion data points right now, and that makes a difference. And finally, of course, when it comes to the customer, it's all about return on investment. So, in terms of what we try and do here, we're trying to provide intelligent and qualitative solutions. People talk about smart, but you actually need to have quality. You need to have the right information coming through. We're delivering zero escapes. That's what our objective is as a business. We're into escape management. How do you prevent a leak, a spill, a shrinkage if it's in the gas market, or a pollution event? At the end of the day, it's about making the data count. And there's so much more that can be got. I think every party has talked about the additional value you can get from the data. I think the biggest issue that utilities face is how do you hone in? How do you strip away all the noise to focus in on what's going to give you the best bang for your buck? Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.